I wanted to share a story.
Where were you at again?
The Crystal Skulls event.
Cool. That must be.
Okay. So that was, it was 11/11/11 this weekend. And Laura was drawn, my wife, to buy this crystal skull here. So it's, is this citrine? I believe
Is it waxy?
Yeah, it looks kind of waxy. But when Laura showed me this, I was like, wow, okay, that's cool. There's so much intensity there. And there was a lot of scholars about the whole crystalline matrix that we are as human beings, as the earth is, as our universe is. And that crystal skulls have a certain construction that hold energy very powerfully. And so there was a lot of owners of skulls that were there, and they were, Fabian and I were just talking about it, they were so just gentle, peaceful, egoless beings that were just the carriers of the skulls. And it wasn't about them, you know. And then somebody brought this skull, because there's this one skull, Einstein, and he said there's going to be some mystery skulls that pop up. And so all of a sudden I was talking to the MC, his name is Jaap Van Etten, and so he's one of the predominant researchers with crystal skulls. And I was talking to him, and then this guy, what's his name? Stephen Mailer, yeah. He comes up and he goes, "You got to see this skull. I'm not sure how long it's going to be here." And there's this guy here, and so I'm like, and Job was like waiting for me to ask my question. I was like, "Come on, let's go." I keep saying Job because it's spelled Job, but it's actually Job. And so he popped out there, and Stephen Mailer was out there. He was a very dynamic speaker from the weekend, and he was just like, "Holy man, you know." And at the time, Jane Doherty, who was holding this Mayan skull called Maya, and she's also one of the most renowned psychics, she was working on the skull. And me and Jaap were just like watching, and she came away with feeling that this was a very, very powerful skull, and that she saw a lot of things, and not everything was so great. There was darkness in it. It had been through some tumultuous, crazy times. It had, in fact, I have a picture of it. I was going to bring Laura's camera in to show you guys, because it has this really interesting script. There's this guy named Raymond Tarpey who spoke, and he is a linguist, so he knows very well about Chinese and multiple languages. And he saw this script, and he wasn't sure what it was right away, but the guy, the owner of the skull, he said, it's a particular script. And right away the guy's like, oh, Raymond Tarpey's like, oh, okay, so this is from the time of Genghis Khan. Because the guy said that that's where the skull came from, was the Gobi Desert. And it's a very ominous skull. I was talking about Jane Doherty, one of the predominant psychics around the world, and she has the only skull that has 3 sets of teeth. Well, this skull also has 3 sets of teeth. So I have a picture of it that I was going to show you guys. Actually, when we have it on the website, we'll just have that as our main picture. But the skull is about like this compared to this skull. Then it has these nostrils that come out in little balls, because you can tell like how old they are, sort of, if they're like a Neanderthal type with the forehead and the ridges of the eyes very powerfully predominant, or with it sticking out right here, or the jaw coming out. And I listened to a lot of people talk about this skull. I saw this one very sensitive, sweet guy, and he was like, he got done and he goes, "Nobody should see some of the things that I saw." That it was terrible. Genghis Kahn, what they figured out, because there were psychics and stuff working on it, he carried this into war, this skull. Right? And when Jane Doherty worked on it, she felt a release happening. And her and everybody else said that this skull needs to have some kind of feminine, female, and that's what it was looking for. I was wearing this necklace. This is white jade, and that's what the skull was made of. It was white jade. It doesn't look like it, but it is. And it's funny because I didn't know, but there's a bunch of like script on the back of this. And I was talking to Raymond Tarpey, the linguist. I'm like, yeah, there's all this. And he's like, whoa, what? So that's ancient. And he was speaking fluently Chinese with 2 other gals. And they started looking at it, and she goes, oh, this is about something about winning a war. I just thought it was Kuan Yin. So I was like, oh, okay, so I'm just going to give the skull, because I was working with the skull for a while. And it was very, very intense. And I was just like, cool. You are who you are, and just, love and whatever you need. And I just felt like there was feminine energy coming. And then I was speaking to the Chinese people. They were like, wow, if this is something about winning a war, but it's at least 1,000 years old. The writing on the back. And so Dale Walker was there, Patricia's teacher, and he was amazed. And this skull is looking for home. And whatever it is, what I believe is this skull is kind of like the earth has been, where it's been a lot of war, and now it's time for healing. The feminine has been suppressed. So this last 2,000 years of the Piscean age was about war. And the Aryan age before that, 2000 BC to 1 AD, was about conquest. And it was about getting rid of the feminine and starting to worship the patriarchal, the male, and go out away from nature and indoors. And the Taurian age before that, 2000 BC to 4000 BC, that's when we worshipped the feminine. And that's now what's happening with the earth. And I feel this skull is the embodiment of the earth. And it needs, when this skull gets healed, it's going to do a lot of healing around the world. So I think there's going to be some amazing things happening with this mystery skull. But I just want to talk a little bit and share that with you guys, because it was a very intense experience that I had with that.
So who is the holder of that skull right here?
He was wearing this really interesting artifact. This really interesting ring. Crystal ring is just a big rock nose. And he had this gentle, and our eyes just locked a bunch of times. And it was just like, that's a very subtly perceptive, refined human being. He wasn't just some dark dude he knew what he was doing. He had the I don't want to say the bead on everything that was going on, because that sounds a little nefarious. But he was present and he was aware. There was this crystal skull event going on, and here he was with this magnificent, one-of-a-kind mystery skull that comes from the Gobi Desert, looking for a home. But it's going to go to the right place, whatever it is. So,